Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a really close look at someone who, well, everyone knows, but maybe doesn't know, if you see what I mean. Sir Thomas Sean Connery.
Absolutely. The name immediately brings one thing to mind for most people, doesn't it? James Bond. The first, and for many, the definitive Bond.
Exactly. But that image, the tuxedo, the cool demeanor, it almost hides the real story.
It really does. Behind 007, you've got this fiercely Scottish man from a tough working-class background in Edinburgh. A bodybuilder, a milkman, a Navy man.
A coffin polisher.
A coffin polisher, yeah. And someone who, interestingly, spent a lot of his career pushing back against the very role that made him a global icon.
That's what we want to explore today. We're going deep into his life, from 1930 right up to 2020. We'll trace him from being Big Tam and Fountain Bridge through those, frankly, amazing early jobs and some pretty intense real-life confrontations.
Oh, definitely. The hard man reputation wasn't just for show.
Right. And then into the Bond phenomenon, of course, but also beyond it, his fight for different roles, his passionate politics, the personal controversies, and, well, how he chose to end his legendary career.
It's quite a journey. He kicked off Bond with Dr. No in '62, did 7 films in total, up to 83, if you count Never Say Never Again. Right. But yeah, to really get the measure of the man, you've got to go back way before that, back to Thomas Connery in Edinburgh.
Okay, let's do that. Part 1, the making of a Scot. Those origins seem absolutely critical to understanding him.
Totally. Born Thomas Sean Connery, August 25th, 1930, Royal Maternity Hospital, Edinburgh. And the name Thomas, that was after his paternal grandfather.
And his family background, it wasn't glamorous at all, was it?
Not remotely. His mother, Euphemia McBain McLean, they called her Effie. She was a cleaning woman. His dad, Joseph Connery, worked in a factory, drove a lorry. I mean, this is proper working-class, post-Depression Edinburgh we're talking about. Grit and hard work.
And his heritage is fascinatingly mixed, too. It wasn't just Scottish.
No, not at all. His father's side was half Irish. His paternal great-grandparents came over from Wexford in Ireland around the mid-1800s. And there's even a detail about one great-grandfather being identified as an Irish traveler.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And then on his mother's side, it's deep Scottish roots. Her great-grandparents were native Scottish Gaelic speakers from Fife and Oog up on the Isle of Skye.
So you've got this blend Irish, Scottish traveler, Scottish Gaelic, and religious differences too, right?
Exactly. Father was Catholic, mother was Protestant. Think about that mix simmering away in one person growing up. It likely forged that incredibly strong sort of self-defined identity he had later on.
He wasn't always Sean, though. He started as Tommy.
That's right, just Tommy. Okay. But apparently he shot up pretty quickly. By 18, he was already 6'2".
Hence Big Tam.
Hence his Big Tam, yeah. A nickname that kind of stuck, signifying that physical presence. The name Sean, his middle name, he apparently started using later because he had an Irish friend called Seamus, and people just started associating the names, calling him Sean.
Interesting how names evolve, but that physical presence, Big Tam, it wasn't just about height, was it? It was built on sheer hard graft from a young age.
Oh, absolutely. Necessity is the mother of invention and also apparently relentless work ethic.
Which leads us to that amazing list of early jobs. It's quite something.
It really is. It's almost hard to picture Sir Sean Connery doing this, but his very first job was as a milkman.
A milkman in Edinburgh for St. Cuthbert's Cooperative Society.
Yeah, and there's that great anecdote from years later, 2009, I think, during the Edinburgh Film Festival. He's in a taxi, and the driver's just amazed he knows every single street.
And Connery just says,
"As a boy, I used to deliver milk round here." Just deadpan. It perfectly captures how grounded he remained in some ways.
So milkman. What else?
Lorry driver, like his dad. A laborer. He worked as a lifeguard down at the Portobello swimming baths. Probably helped with the physique, that one.
Definitely.
And the slightly more unusual one, a coffin polisher.
Yeah, that one always stands out. Apparently a former Mr. Scotland suggested it. Shows you the kind of jobs available.
It really does. But maybe the job that hinted most at the future, in a way, was when he worked as an artist's model.
Right, for the Edinburgh College of Art, 15 shillings an hour, which probably wasn't bad then.
And he made an impression. The artist Richard DeMarco, who painted him, described him as, what was it? Too beautiful for words, a virtual Adonis.
So the raw material for the future sex symbol was definitely there, long before Hollywood.
Undeniably. And that physique wasn't an accident either. He got seriously into bodybuilding around age 18.
Trained hard, didn't he? With a former Army instructor.
He did. Very disciplined. It led to him competing in the Mr. Universe contest in 1953. Sources differ a bit on exactly how he placed, maybe third in the junior class, maybe unplaced in the tall man category, but he was definitely there, competing.
But he didn't stick with bodybuilding, did he? There was something about it that put him off.
Yeah, and this is really telling about his mindset. He saw himself as an athlete, someone who moved. He noticed the American competitors were often bigger, yeah, but they seemed, to him, reluctant to do anything athletic running, sports that might cost them muscle mass.
Ah, okay, so it was too focused on just static bulk for him.
Exactly. He wasn't interested in just being huge. He wanted functional strength, athleticism. That sort of single-minded focus on just size deterred him. It wasn't his path.
Which fits with his time in the Navy, too, that sense of practical physicality. He joined up young, didn't he?
Very young, 16, in 1946. Trained in gunnery, anti-aircraft stuff. Didn't last that long, though.
Medical discharge.
Yeah, at 19. He had a duodenal ulcer. Apparently it ran in the family, so it wasn't service-related, just bad luck.
But he left with some permanent souvenirs.
Literally. His tattoos. Got them during his Navy time. And they're very revealing, aren't they? Mom and Dad on one arm.
And Scotland Forever on the other.
Exactly. Those weren't just random designs. They were lifelong commitments inked onto him. Family and country. Core values right there.
Which brings us to that huge sliding doors moment. The football career that almost was.
Oh, this is one of the great what-ifs. He was a decent footballer. Played for local teams like Bonnie Rig Rose. Then, when he was touring with a stage show...
South Pacific, right?
That's the one. He played in a local match, just for fun probably, and who happens to be scouting? Only Matt Busby.
The Matt Busby, Manchester United manager, legend.
The absolute legend. And Busby saw something in Connery's physique and stamina on the pitch. Apparently offered him a contract right there and then.
For $25 a week, which back then, early 50s.
That was serious money. A guaranteed career path with one of the biggest clubs in the world. Most lads would have bitten his hand off.
But Connery didn't.
He didn't. And his reasoning, even at 23, was remarkably far-sighted. He looked at professional footballers and figured, you're basically past your peak by 30.
Over the hill was his phrase.
Yeah. He made this cold, hard calculation that acting, even though it was precarious and paid terribly at the time, offered a much longer potential career.
He called it one of my more intelligent moves.
And you can't argue with that, can you? I mean, imagine turning down Matt Busby and Manchester United to stick with chorus lines and bit parts. It took incredible self-belief. But if he had signed, well, film history would look very different.
No Bond, potentially.
Quite possibly. No Connery as Bond. Yeah. Mind-boggling, really.
Okay, so he chose acting. Let's track that path. He started backstage, didn't he, just trying to earn some extra cash?
Yeah, King's Theater, 1951. Then he started auditioning. His bodybuilding connections actually helped. Heard about auditions for South Pacific while he was in London for a competition in 53.
And he got in.
Got a small part initially, just chorus. But he was ambitious. By the time the show toured back to Edinburgh, he'd moved up. And eventually he landed a featured role, Lieutenant Buzz Adams. Took over from Larry Hagman, actually.
No kidding, Larry Hagman, J.R. Ewing.
The very same. Small world, isn't it? But that South Pacific tour was vital for another reason. He met Robert Henderson.
The American actor, his mentor.
That's him. Henderson saw the raw talent under the rough exterior. Pushed him. Said he needed elocution lessons, crucial for losing the thick Edinburgh accent if he wanted wider roles.
And introduced him to serious literature.
Yes. Lent him Ibsen, Tolstoy, Shakespeare. Started polishing the diamond, you could say. Broadening his mind beyond just the physical stuff.
But it was still a struggle financially, right?
Oh, definitely. He was doing part-time jobs, like babysitting for 10 shillings a night just to make ends meet, while doing small theater gigs and tiny TV and film parts, like being an uncredited extra in Lilacs in the spring in 54.
His first proper credited film role came a bit later.
1957. His agent, Richard Haddon, got him cast as Spike in No Road Back. A minor gangster role, apparently with a speech impediment.
Okay, so he's grafting, learning his craft. But alongside this, he's building this other reputation, the hard man reputation. And this wasn't acting.
No, this was real life. And there are two incidents in particular that really stand out. The first one happened back in Edinburgh during that South Pacific run.
The Valdor Gang incident.
That's the one. Apparently, some members of this notorious local gang tried to steal his jacket when he was in a billiard hall. He wasn't having any of it.
And it escalated.
It did. Later that night, about 6 of them cornered him on a balcony somewhere, Palais de Danse, I think it was. Ready for trouble.
And Connery's response.
Pure big tam. Sources say he grabbed 2 of them, one by the throat, one by the bicep, and just cracked their heads together. Bam!
Seriously?
Apparently so. Instant effect. The rest backed off, and from then on, the Valador gang treated him with total respect, earned his stripes the hard way, showed he could handle himself decisively.
That story alone gives you a different perspective.
It does. And then there's the even more dangerous incident, this time involving Hollywood royalty and actual gangsters. 1958.
While filming Another Time, Another Place with Lana Turner.
Exactly. Connery's playing a British reporter. Lana Turner at the time was involved with a very dangerous man named Johnny Stompanato.
Who was connected to Mickey Cohen, the L.A. mob boss.
Right. Stompanato was intensely jealous, possessive. He somehow got it into his head that Turner and Connery were having an affair on set.
So what did he do?
Flew all the way to London, stormed onto the film set, and reportedly pulled a gun on Connery.
Pulled a gun on Sean Connery.
Yep, big mistake. Connery, quick as a flash, apparently disarmed him and knocked him flat out, just dealt with it.
Wow. What happened then?
Scotland Yard had to get involved, basically escorted Stompanato off the set and onto a plane home. But it wasn't over. Connery later said he had to genuinely lie low for a while because he got credible threats from Mickey Cohen's associates.
So he'd literally tangled with the mafia, or close to it.
Pretty much.
Oh.
Think about that background when they were casting for James Bond. This wasn't some pampered actor. This was a guy who'd faced down street gangs and armed gangsters. It adds a layer of authentic steel, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Which, as you say, brings us right to 1962. James Bond, 007. The role that defined him, whether he liked it or not.
And it almost didn't happen. He was apparently wary himself, didn't want to get stuck in a series, but he saw the potential, obviously.
But the creator, Ian Fleming, hated the idea.
Hated it. Famously called Connery an overgrown stunt man. Said he wasn't sophisticated enough, too working class, too rough around the edges. Fleming wanted someone more like, well, David Niven maybe.
So how did Connery get the part?
A lot of credit goes to Dana Broccoli, the wife of the producer, Cubby Broccoli. She apparently really pushed for Connery, saw past the rough edges, and recognized that raw charisma, the physical presence, the sort of dangerous magnetism the role needed for the screen.
She convinced her husband.
She did. But they knew he needed polishing. That's where the director, Terrence Young, came in.
Ah, yes, the famous finishing school period.
Pretty much. Young basically took him in hand, taught him how to dress, how to walk, how to talk, even how to order fine wine and food, how to move like Bond. Gave him that Seville Row sophistication overlaying the raw power.
And the result.
Boom. Dr. No comes out. And it's instant. Global stardom. Thousands of fan letters a week. Suddenly, he's the international sex symbol.
It's amazing how quickly it happened.
And the impact was huge. The American Film Institute later ranked Connery's Bond as the third greatest movie hero ever. And that line,
Bond, James Bond,
delivered with that perfect cool arrogance,
mm-hmm.
became arguably the most famous character introduction in film history.
And the ultimate proof that he nailed it, Fleming changed his mind.
Completely. He was so impressed by Connery and Dr. No that when he wrote the next novel, You Only Live Twice in '64, he actually gave Bond a Scottish background. Said his father was from Glencoe.
He literally rewrote the character to match the actor.
Incredible, isn't it? It shows the power of that performance. But we shouldn't forget, even playing Bond had its real dangers.
You're thinking of the sharks in Thunderball.
Exactly, 1965. The scene in Largo's pool. Connery was wary, insisted they put up a plexiglass barrier between him and the sharks.
Sensible precaution.
Very. Except, one of the sharks apparently managed to get through a gap in the barrier.
Seriously? What did he do?
Got out of that pool faster than you can say shaken, not stirred, I imagine. Just a reminder that even the glamour had a very real edge of risk.
Definitely. And before we move fully past Bond, we should just clarify that 7th film appearance. 6 official ones, but then...
Ah, yes, Never Say Never Again in 1983. Crucial point. That wasn't an Eon Productions film, the company that makes the official Bond movies.
It came out of a separate rights issue over the Thunderball story, right?
Exactly. So it's kind of an outlier. But the title itself is brilliant, apparently suggested by his wife, Micheline.
Because he'd sworn he'd never again play Bond.
Precisely. A little inside joke. But it allowed him to come back to the role one last time, on his own terms, outside the main series. Showed he still had it, even as an older agent.
Okay, so he establishes this massive global profile with Bond, but almost immediately starts pushing against it.
Oh, absolutely. By the time he finished his initial run with Diamonds Are Forever in '71, he was, by all accounts, thoroughly sick of it. This kicks off decades of him actively fighting that typecasting.
He wasn't shy about saying it either.
Not at all. Famously said he was fed up to hear with the whole Bond bit. And that quote about hating Bond wanting to kill him.
Strong words.
Very. His friend Michael Caine said that back then you just didn't mention Bond around Connery. It genuinely rankled him that the world saw him only as this one character when he saw himself as a serious, versatile actor.
So how did he fight back? Strategically, it seems.
Very strategically. He used the massive clout Bond gave him to get roles with major directors demanding roles, like working with Hitchcock on Marnie in 1964, right in the middle of Bond mania.
And that led to that amazing story about the script.
Oh, the classic Connery moment. Hitchcock, notoriously didn't like actors questioning him, often wouldn't give him the full script. Connery demanded to see it.
And Hitchcock's people said something like, even Cary Grant doesn't ask to see the script.
That's the story. And Connery's reply was just perfect, wasn't it?
I'm not Cary Grant.
Bang. Just laid it out there. I am my own man. I demand professional respect. A real statement of intent. He wasn't going to be just a puppet.
And he followed that up with The Hill.
Yes, 1965 with Sidney Lumet. A really tough, gritty film about a military prison. Critically acclaimed, won Best Screenplay at Cannes. Lumet became one of his favorite directors.
And Lumet saw something special in him.
Yeah, Lumet talked about Connery having this incredible charisma, a kind of high comedy magnetism, even in a serious role. It proved he could do complex, demanding drama miles away from the suave spy stuff.
So the 70s became his period of sort of diversification.
Definitely.
Yeah.
He shared a Golden Globe in '72 for World Film Favorite, showing his global appeal was still huge. And then came some really great roles. The Man Who Would Be King in '75, with Michael Caine.
Directed by John Huston. Both Connery and Caine said it was their favorite film experience, didn't they?
They did. A proper epic adventure, great chemistry between them, allowed him to play something grander, more flawed than Bond. And it cemented that lifelong friendship with Caine.
He also did Romance, playing an older Robin Hood.
Robin and Marion in '76, opposite Audrey Hepburn. A lovely film, actually. Roger Ebert wrote about how they just glowed together on screen, showed a softer, more vulnerable side.
Okay, but we can't talk about the 70s without mentioning The Outlier, the really weird one.
Ah, you mean the film with the memorable costume?
I mean Zardos, 1974. The scarlet mankini, the thigh-high boots, the ponytail.
Chuckles, yes. John Boorman's Zardos. Look, it's undeniably one of the strangest mainstream films ever made. Divides opinion, massively cult classic or pretentious mess.
But Connery did it, right at the peak of his serious actor phase. It was a massive risk to his image.
Huge risk. Had terrible reviews initially. But the fact he took it on shows he was genuinely willing to experiment, to try something completely off the wall. And it has gained that cult following over the years.
And Boorman, the director, actually spoke highly of Connery's intellect during filming, didn't he?
He did. Mentioned Connery writing poetry in his downtime, having great depth and intelligence, an extraordinary memory. Again, pushing back against that just muscle stereotype.
So moving into the 80s, he really finds his groove playing well air. Older guys, mentors.
Absolutely. And this leads to, arguably, his greatest critical triumph, The Untouchables in 1987.
Playing Jim Malone, the tough Irish-American cop who schools Kevin Costner's Elliot Ness.
Brilliant performance.
Yeah.
Gritty, world-weary, but with that core of integrity.
Yeah.
And it finally won him the Oscar.
Best Supporting Actor. The first Scot to win a major acting Oscar.
Huge moment. He also got a Golden Globe for it and a BAFTA the same year for another great role in The Name of the Rose.
Critics loved him as Malone, didn't they? Ebert said he brought a real human element, made you believe these were real people.
Yeah, he just inhabited that role. And it sort of set the template for other great mentor figures he played around that time, like Ramirez and Highlander.
There can be only one. Great fun, that role.
Yeah.
Wise, flamboyant, deadly with a sword.
Exactly. And then, perhaps most famously, Indiana Jones's dad.
Professor Henry Jones Sr. in Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade in '89. Perfect casting.
Just genius. The chemistry with Harrison Ford was fantastic. And Ford himself said Connery wasn't just reciting lines, he actively contributed to the script.
Really? How so?
Ford said Connery made suggestions that added layers to the father-son relationship, more depth, more comedy, made the character richer. Wasn't just there for the paycheck, he was invested.
He had a few more hits after that, The Hunt for Red October, The Rock.
Yeah, solid films in the 90s. But then things started to, well, go downhill in terms of his enjoyment.
Leading to The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen in 2003.
That seems to have been the final straw. By all accounts, it was a miserable production experience for him. The film didn't do well critically or commercially.
He sensed it was going wrong during filming.
Apparently so. Said the director should be locked up for insanity. He was just done with the whole process.
And it led to his retirement.
Pretty much. He officially confirmed it in 2006. And his reason was blunt. He was disillusioned with the idiots now making films in Hollywood.
Strong stuff. But it shows his conviction, which leads to the mind-blowing part. The roles he turned down after retiring.
It's almost unbelievable. The big one, of course, is Gandalf.
In The Lord of the Rings, he turned down Gandalf. Why?
His explanation was simple. I did not understand the script. He just didn't get the fantasy world, didn't connect with it.
Okay, but the financial implications
Are staggering.
Yeah.
The reports suggest he was offered something like $30 million up front. PLE West, 15% of the global box office for all three films.
given how huge those films were.
Estimates put the total potential earnings he walked away from at around $450 million.
$450 million.
Yeah.
Because he didn't get the script.
That's conviction, isn't it? Or maybe just being comfortable enough to say no.
Yeah.
He also turned down Dumbledore in Harry Potter.
And the architect in the Matrix sequels as well, I read.
Yeah, he was just done. Didn't matter how big the offer was. His principles, or maybe just his peace of mind, came first.
Did he do anything else after retiring?
Just one small thing. He voiced the main character in a Scottish animated film called Sir Billy in 2012. Perhaps a final nod to his roots before stepping away completely.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit now to his personal life, which was, well, it had its complexities and controversies. We need to approach this carefully.
Absolutely. Objectively reporting what the sources say. He was married twice. First to the Australian actress Diane Salento.
From 1962 to 1973, though they separated a couple of years earlier, they had one son, Jason Connery, who's also an actor.
Yes. Now, it's important to mention that in her autobiography, published in 2006, Diane Salento made allegations of mental and physical abuse against Connery during their marriage.
And this connects sadly to a recurring controversy in Connery's public life, his statements about hitting women. There was that infamous Playboy interview in 1965.
Yes, the quote where he reportedly said something along the lines of, "I don't think there's anything particularly wrong in hitting a woman," though adding a caveat about not doing it the same way as hitting a man.
A shocking statement, then and now, and one he never really seemed to fully retract or distance himself from for decades.
No. And it came up again in 1993 in a Vanity Fair interview, where he was quoted saying something about some women pushing for the ultimate confrontation and wanting a smack. These comments really stuck to him, clashing dramatically with the suave Bond image.
However, to be fair and complete, he did issue a later statement trying to address it.
He did. In 2006, perhaps prompted by the renewed attention from Salento's book, he released a statement to the Times newspaper in London. It said, quite clearly, "I don't believe that any level of abuse of women is ever justified under any circumstances. Full stop."
So a definitive later stance, but the earlier quotes were made part of his complex public record. It even caused him to cancel an appearance at the Scottish Parliament around that time.
It did. It was a significant shadow. His second marriage, however, was much longer lasting.
To Micheline Roquebrune, the French-Moroccan painter, they married in 1975.
And they stayed together right up until his death in 2020. It wasn't without its own reported issues. There was talk of an affair he had in the late 80s with the singer Lindsay DePaul.
Right, I remember that being reported.
But ultimately, the marriage endured for, 45 years? A very long partnership.
Okay, turning now to the other huge pillar of his identity outside of acting, his politics, specifically his passionate Scottish nationalism.
Oh, this was absolutely core to him. Seemed deeply connected to his working-class Edinburgh roots and that fierce sense of identity.
Did it develop later in life, or was it always there?
It certainly became more public later. He himself pointed to a documentary he made back in 1967 called The Bowler and the Bunnet. It was about industrial relations, shipyard workers in Glasgow. He said that experience was the start of his journey toward supporting the Scottish National Party, the SNP.
And he didn't just offer moral support, did he? He put his money where his mouth was.
He did, significantly. He funded the SNP for many years. That only stopped in 2001 because the law changed in the UK, banning political donations from people living overseas.
And his political views, his support for Scottish independence, actually caused issues with the British establishment, didn't it? Particularly regarding his knighthood.
Yes. When he was finally knighted by the Queen in 2000, and he made a point of wearing his mother's McLean tartan kilt for the ceremony, a very Scottish statement.
A proud moment.
Absolutely. But reports suggest he could have received it earlier. Apparently, nominations in 97 and 98 were vetoed, possibly because of his outspoken support for the SNP and independence, which wouldn't have gone down well with the government at the time.
So getting the knighthood in 2000 felt like a bit of a political victory as well.
You could definitely see it that way. A recognition he perhaps felt was long overdue and maybe a sign of shifting political winds, too.
Now, his politics were also tied up with his financial status, specifically being a tax exile.
Yes, this was another source of controversy, particularly in the UK press. He moved to the Bahamas in the 1990s, meaning he wasn't continuously resident in the UK for tax purposes.
Which allowed him to legally minimize his UK tax bill on his considerable earnings.
Exactly. He did release some figures in 2003, showing he had paid millions, 3.7 million, I think, in UK tax over certain periods. But critics argued it was far less than he would have paid if he'd been a full UK resident.
And this tax status had practical implications for his political campaigning, too.
It did. His own brother mentioned that the rules around how much time he could legally spend in the UK, because of his tax status, actually limited his ability to be physically present and campaign in Scotland during the run-up to the big independence referendum in 2014.
So his chosen lifestyle perhaps inadvertently restricted his direct political involvement later on.
It seems that way. And his financial affairs weren't just UK-focused. There was that issue in Spain, too.
After he sold his villa in Marbella, a tax investigation?
Yeah, a complicated one. Connery himself was eventually cleared of any wrongdoing in that Spanish investigation, but his wife, Micheline, and quite a few others were actually charged in relation to alleged tax fraud connected to the property deal. It highlights the complexities of managing that level of wealth internationally.
It really paints a picture of a life lived on a huge scale, juggling global fame, immense wealth, strong political convictions, and those deep roots.
Definitely. A constant balancing act, it seems.
Away from work and politics, what were his passions? Golf seems like a big one.
Huge. Became a lifelong, very keen golfer. Got into it to a friend, Ian Stewart.
And it became part of his image, partly thanks to Goldfinger, didn't it?
Absolutely. That famous golf match in the film. Apparently, he wasn't much of a golfer before that, so they brought in the legendary Peter Allis to give him lessons, just so he looked convincing on screen.
And he got associated with those Slazenger V-neck sweaters he wore.
Yeah, that light gray marl color became iconic because of him. And by all accounts, he became genuinely good at the game. Jack Nicklaus himself said Connery was a pretty darn good golfer. High praise.
So moving towards his final years, his public appearances became rarer after retirement.
Understandably. He died peacefully in his sleep on October 31st, 2020. He was 90 years old, at his home in the Bahamas.
The official cause of death was pneumonia and respiratory failure. And his wife later shared something quite personal about his health struggles.
Yes. Micheline revealed that he had been suffering from dementia in his final years, which is incredibly sad.
And his final wish was very much tied to his identity, wasn't it?
It was. He wanted his ashes scattered back home in Scotland, which they were apparently at some undisclosed private locations in 2022, bringing him back to the land he loved.
The reaction to his death was immense, wasn't it? Tributes from everywhere.
Absolutely. From all the other Bonds, Daniel Craig, Pierce Brosnan, George Lazenby, Timothy Dalton, major filmmakers like George Lucas.
Michael Caine's tribute was lovely.
Called him a great star, brilliant actor, and a wonderful friend. But perhaps the most fitting summary came from the Bond producers, Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson.
What did they say?
They said Connery had revolutionized the world with his portrayal of Bond and was undoubtedly largely responsible for the success of the film series. Hard to argue with that.
No, you really can't. Which brings us to his enduring legacy and the honors he received.
His status, particularly in Scotland, was just unparalleled. In 2004, a big poll named him the greatest living Scot.
And that was echoed again later, wasn't it? Scotland's greatest living national treasure in 2011.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And globally, that image of masculinity persisted. People magazine named him sexiest man alive way back in 1989 when he was nearly 60.
And then Sexiest Man of the Century in 1999. Quite the titles.
Indeed. And of course, he holds that record, tied with Roger Moore for playing Bond 7 times, if you include Never Say Never Again. And
his name is still actively celebrated in Scotland now.
Yes. Just this year, 2024, the Edinburgh International Film Festival launched a major new prize in his honor, the Sean Connery Prize for Feature Filmmaking Excellence. It's a significant award, £50,000 chosen by the audience. Keeps his connection to Scottish film alive.
Looking back at the major awards across his career, it's quite a list.
It really is. The Oscar for Untouchables in '87, that BAFTA Fellowship in '98, the Kennedy Center Honors in the U.S. in '99, the knighthood in 2000.
The AFI Life Achievement Award in 2006, the Cecil B. DeMille at the Golden Globes. France gave him honors too.
Commander of the Order of Arts and Letters. Yeah, it shows recognition across the board for a career that spanned decades and genres.
It really is an incredible arc when you lay it all out. From that Edinburgh milkman, the virtual Adonis model, the guy who chose acting over football,
Survived run-ins with gangs and gangsters.
fought against the Bond typecasting, championed Scottish independence, lived life very much on his own terms, right through to becoming this global screen legend.
Right.
That's a lot.
It is a deeply complex man. You have that constant tension, don't you, between the rough, working-class roots of Big Tam and the sophisticated, sometimes quite aloof characters he often played. Maybe the real Connery was always navigating that space in between.
That's a great way to put it. So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe here's something for you, the listener, to ponder.
When you think about the true measure of Sir Sean Connery, what defines him most? Is it the iconic roles he embodied, that undeniable physical presence that dominated the screen for so long?
Or perhaps is the real insight into his character found in the roles he refused, particularly that decision to walk away from potentially hundreds of millions of dollars from things like Lord of the Rings simply because he didn't connect with it or was disillusioned with the industry? Does that ultimate act of saying no tell us more about the man than all the yeses that came before?